3 minutes ago, I was triple-checking the numbers that would keep my 13-year-old in the STEM academy he loves. Tuition. Robotics fees. The new laptop his dinosaur Dell keeps threatening to swallow. Now I'm staring at the blinking light on my desk phone. HR extension 802, pulsing like an arterial wound. I pick up, expecting another funding form. But the voice that answers is cold, practiced, and already bored with my future. "Piper, could you come to Conference C? Bring your badge." That last phrase lands wrong. Badges are returned, not brought. My gut slips. Conference C smells like carpet and cowardice. HR Rep Marla Crane sits rigid, legal pad ready, while Trent Hollinger reclines across the table. Yacht pattern tie puckered like a smile. He doesn't stand. He only taps the edge of the folder in front of him. Dare you eyes sparkling. Marla begins a script about organizational realignment, every syllable smoothing the blade. I hear but don't absorb. Position eliminated. Effective immediately. Severance 3 weeks. Best wishes. My ears ring so loudly I can't track Trent's casual shrug. What I do catch is his grin. Polished and predatory. The shock is physical, a cold fist closing around my lungs. But anger, hotter and slower, slides in behind it. I think of my kid rehearsing constellations for his science fair, counting on that bonus I was promised. Trent thinks he's amputating dead weight. He's really cutting bone. I breathe once, steady, and reach for my tote. They assume I'm grabbing tissues. Instead, my fingers close around a silver USB drive. Every contract I've brokered. Every million their quarterly reports brag about. Proof that the junior staffer they just gutted is the spine in their growth curve. I slide it deep into my pocket. Stand. And extend my badge. Marla looks relieved. Trent looks bored. "Exit is downstairs," she says. I nod. Words still locked behind my teeth. There's no safe sentence for this fury. Quiet keeps its own edge. In the hall, fluorescent lights hum like insects. My pulse keeps time. I'm walking out lighter by one ID card and one illusion. Heavier by a flash drive loaded with leverage. The shock hasn't left, but it's been joined by purpose. Slow, molten, unstoppable. At the elevator, I allow myself a single look back. Trent is visible through the glass wall, already checking his phone. Certain the matter is closed. He has no clue what just left the building with me. That ignorance is almost merciful. The doors close, steel slides. I whisper a promise the ceiling camera can't lip read. No one takes food off my kid's plate and walks away. The ride down is 34 seconds, long enough to plan the first cut. My apartment had never felt so hollow. No sirens, no fridge hum. Just the wall clock thumping out seconds I suddenly owned too many of. I shut the door as gently as if noise alone might fracture me. Then dumped the cardboard box of office leftovers onto the couch. A stress ball bounced once, landing beside the robotics camp brochure my 13-year-old taped there last night. The brochure's headline, "Dream big, build bigger," blurred while I stared. Camp tuition, STEM fees, a laptop upgrade, all penciled into a spreadsheet funded by the bonus Novodyne vaporized an hour ago. Despair pooled behind my eyes, hot and heavy. I couldn't tell my son yet. He was still at school, believing the world was stable. I paced instead of crumbling, moving dishes, folding a hoodie, pretending momentum equaled progress. In the hallway closet, a file crate sagged, papers spilling like guts. I knelt to shove folders back when a blue-backed booklet snagged my sleeve. Novodyne Employment Agreement, 2017 renewal. Dust scattered as I opened it. Pages flipped until a bold block of text stopped me cold. If employee is terminated without just cause, employer shall pay 10% of net quarterly profit in lieu of bonus or severance. My pulse spiked. Last week's finance deck, prepared by me, projected third quarter net profit at $37 million. 10% of that was 3,700,000. 3.7 million. I read the clause again, half expecting the ink to vanish. It didn't. I hurried to the back. Signatures. Real ink. Dated. Mine and the former CEO's. Nobody had ever rescinded it. Apparently, nobody had ever read it. I remembered the sweaty handshake session in 2017, back when Novodyne was half its current size and desperate to keep me from jumping to Boeing. I had slipped the clause in under executive parity while legal scrambled to rewrite option grants. The old CEO laughed, calling it rainy day insurance I'd never need. Apparently, storms arrive on someone else's forecast. Now that joke felt prophetic. The cement clogging my chest cracked. Laptop open. I pulled up the emailed forecast. 37 million still stared back. Black on white. Multiply. 3.7. Enough to cover robotics camp, next year's tuition, even a head start on college. Enough to flip desperation into leverage. I slid the agreement into a plastic sleeve and tucked it beside the silver USB still in my tote. The drive holding every contract I'd closed. Evidence of value. Proof of betrayal. Hope, sudden and electric. Elbowed despair aside. I wasn't a discarded cog. I was a creditor with paperwork. Novodyne could call today a restructuring. The contract called it an expensive mistake. The wall clock ticked louder. No longer a taunt, but a metronome. 30 days until camp tuition was due. 90 until quarterly numbers locked. Plenty of time to convert a forgotten clause into a lifeline. I took the robotics brochure, smoothed its crease, and set it on the desk. Target, not casualty. Then I drafted a simple email subject line. Termination without cause. Section 12B. I didn't hit send yet. First, I needed the right shark. My phone screen reflected the contract's blue cover as I scrolled contacts for Milo Kerrigan, the attorney who collected clawback clauses like baseball cards. My thumb hovered, and I felt the switch flip inside me from shock to strategy. 3.7 million, I whispered, testing the weight of it. My son's future might still be intact, if I could make Novodyne remember what they signed. And I would, because numbers are my language. And this clause was about to speak louder than any pink slip they could print. The pawn shop fluorescents rattled overhead like bad nerves, but I signed the ticket anyway and slid my class ring across the glass. My only graduation ring. The symbol of debts already paid. The broker weighed it, shrugged, then counted out $100 bills. $5,000 looked insulting in that torn envelope, yet it was the price of the next move. 20 minutes later, I was downtown, hands still sweating around the cash, staring at a frosted door. Milo Kerrigan. Employment law. 2 letters were half peeled. As if warning lawyers aren't gentle. I knocked. A voice called, "If you're here to whine, go elsewhere. If you're here to fight, come in." Inside. Milo was shorter than the legend, 5'7" at best, but intensity radiated off him like heat from re-entry tiles. Gray buzz cut, cuffed sleeves, desk littered with casebooks, and an untouched sandwich. He motioned me to sit without looking up. Only when I placed the envelope on the blotter did he glance at me with eyes the color of winter concrete. "Retainer?" he asked. 5,000, I said, and a clause Novodyne forgot to shred. He opened the envelope, thumbed through bills, then pushed a legal pad across. "Summarize." I described the morning ambush, the vanished bonus, the contract line promising 10% of Q3 profit if termination was without cause. His pen sketched arrows as I spoke, connecting boxes only he understood. When I finished, silence hung between us like an unserved subpoena. "You realize," Milo finally said, "they'll never admit without cause. They'll build a performance file thicker than your tax returns, written warnings, missed KPIs, maybe an anonymous misconduct claim. They've done it before." My stomach knotted. How do you know? Because I made them pay for it. 3 times. Milo leaned back, chair squeaking. 2 senior engineers and 1 finance VP. Novodyne called each firing necessary realignment. We called it nonsense and settled for $9.2 million. They hate me more than gluten. Part relief, part fear flooded me. So you already have their playbook. He smiled, quick and wolfish. I wrote the epilogue, but your case has a wrinkle, that 10% bomb. Executives get those. Middle management, never. Legal never updated your file after promotion. He tapped the pad. Their oversight is our crowbar. The worry chewing my ribs eased a fraction. What happens first? Paper trail, he said. We vacuum every positive review. Client thank you. Sales metric. We lock timestamps before they can backdate. Then we wait for their forgery and trace the metadata straight to whatever intern edits it at 2 in the morning. He grinned. Digital fingerprints are forever. I pictured Trent's smug face sweating under deposition lights. The vision steadied me. But understand, Milo added, voice flat. They'll threaten countersuit, trade secrets, defamation, whatever scares you into silence. That's where most clients fold. I met his gaze. I won't fold. They already priced my kid's future at 0. I'm correcting their math. A slow nod. Good. Rage is fuel, precision is weapon. He slid a business card across. Email every file tonight. Use Proton, not company Gmail. If IT flags access, they'll claim hacking. I stood, lighter and heavier at once. You ever lose to them, Milo? He uncapped his pen, eyes gleaming. Not yet, and I already beat them on a 10% clause. The sentence hit like a pulse. I pocketed his card, stepped into the corridor, and let the door close. The fight had begun, and worry had become resolve. Outside, Denver traffic roared, sounding less like chaos and more like applause for a war about to start. I allowed myself one quiet smile. The po was steaming, but I couldn't taste it. The clink of chopsticks, the hiss of oil from the kitchen, even the familiar hum of late lunch traffic outside, all of it faded beneath the pounding in my chest. Across from me, Lena Torres sat in the far corner booth of our old haunt, arms crossed, eyes sharp, and voice low. They're wiping the system tonight, she said, leaning in like she was telling me the Wi-Fi password for a classified server. Midnight, full quarterly audit prep. Anything older than 60 days? Gone. My grip on the ceramic bowl tightened. Gone as in archived? Gone as in unrecoverable. CFO's orders. I'd issued a purge protocol, no backups, no off-site mirroring, clean slate. I blinked. I knew Novodyne could be cold. I didn't know they were in scorched earth mode. They're erasing the trail, I said, mostly to myself. Lana nodded grimly. Your trail. I felt the heat rise in my throat like bile. The bonus they just robbed me of? I had earned it signing a $46 million government compliance deal, locked in after 6 weeks of legal hell and 23 drafts of indemnity language. It was the biggest contract in Q3, and it was mine. They logged that contract under active revenue for this quarter? I asked. Her lips pressed into a line. Yes, but get this. The final signature hit DocuSign the morning after they cut you. Trent timed it that way on purpose. Delayed approval just long enough to say you didn't close it. I sat back hard against the booth. The betrayal didn't even sting. It burned. I built that deal from 0. Every clause, every client pitch, every late-night rewrite. And they're counting it, she said. Quarterly numbers are already writing it. The internal memo from the CEO says the deal's a cornerstone of strategic momentum. No mention of you. The chopsticks in my hand snapped in two. You need to move fast, Lana said, sliding a napkin toward me with something scribbled on it. This is the folder path on the shared drive where legal stores the version history. And I've got the email thread from the CEO himself praising your work. time-stamped before the firing. "Send it to me tonight," I said, breath shallow. "I'll forward it from my personal Proton account." "But Piper," she paused, glancing around. "They've already revoked your VPN. You'll need someone else to pull the actual files." "I'll figure it out." Lana reached into her bag and pulled out a flash drive. "This one has the redacted version of the client contract, enough to prove it was in legal queue before they let you go." I tucked it into my jacket like it was gold. Her face softened for a moment. "You were never supposed to see this side of them." I forced a bitter smile. "They never thought I'd fight back." She nodded once. "Well, you've got 4 hours left. After that, their whole digital paper trail goes up in smoke." I stood, heart pounding, broth untouched. The check was already paid. 4 hours? That's what I had. Just long enough to slip a hand into the vault before they slammed it shut. Outside, the sky was turning amber. I pulled out my phone, fingers flying as I dialed Milo. "I need access," I said the second he answered, "and I need it now." I opened the apartment door to a man in a suit 2 sizes too big, holding a legal envelope stamped "Rush." He refused coffee, demanded a signature, and vanished. The return address read Nova Dine Employee Relations. My pulse drummed like metal on metal. The courier's white knuckles contrasted the gold ring circling his thumb. He smelled of cleaner and panic, like someone who rehearsed this goodbye all morning. As he left, elevator doors closed on his reflection, splitting it in two. I wondered whose life he would disassemble after mine became another errand. Inside were 6 documents: a formal written warning, a performance improvement plan, 2 team-wide feedback summaries, and a final evaluation labeling me insubordinate and strategically misaligned. Every page carried yesterday's date, 24 hours before the HR guillotine. Neat trick: condemn the victim before swinging the blade. I moved to the kitchen island, laid each sheet flat, and stared until the letters blurred. They were trying to salt the earth under my claws, prove cause, kill the 10% payout, silence me forever. Something hot crawled up my throat, half scream, half laugh. I exhaled through my teeth, opened Word on my laptop, and dragged the digital files from the attached thumb drive. Properties pane, Details tab, created 7:14 a.m., modified 7:19 a.m., the morning after my badge deactivated. They hadn't even bothered to change the metadata. Rage blazed so bright, my vision vignetted. I clicked signature panel. No wet ink scan, no encrypted click from me. Just T. Hollinger in default Calibri, a pasted image that still showed resize handles when selected. As if someone's intern didn't know how to lock a graphic. The paragraph spacing was off. Bullets misaligned, margins uneven. A rush job, sloppy, desperate. A kettle screeched behind me. I didn't remember turning it on. I shut it off, hands trembling. Then photographed every property screen with my phone. Evidence. Ammunition. 10 minutes later, I was in Milo's office again, breath fogging from the sprint up the stairs. He looked up from a casebook, eyebrow cocked. "They forged the past," I said, slapping the folder down. He flipped pages with surgeon calm. "All this signed yesterday?" "No. Timestamp says this morning, 2 hours after IT revoked my credentials." He opened the digital files on his monitor, checking the metadata himself. A low whistle escaped him. "Amateurs." "I'm supposed to have acknowledged receipt," I growled. "See any mark that's mine?" He zoomed the signature block, tapped the floating edges. "Copy-paste special, classic Trent. Didn't even embed the image." A vein thumped in my neck. They're framing me as dead weight. They think they can erase a decade by inventing a narrative. Milo leaned back, laced fingers behind his head. "Narratives crumble under light. We'll subpoena the server logs. Their own exchange backups will betray them." I paced the narrow rug, fury buzzing like static across my skin. I want this clause honored, but I also want him exposed. He grinned, the kind of grin that makes insurance adjusters faint. We can multitask. He printed the metadata screens, stapled them to the forged warnings, and slid the packet into a red evidence folder. This, he said, is perjury bait. Judges hate perjury. My breathing slowed, anger condensing into something harder, denser, granite over gasoline. I watched Milo label the folder ND Forge 801, felt a savage satisfaction bloom. He snapped the folder shut, tucked it into his briefcase, and looked up at me, eyes gleaming like somebody just handed him the winning lottery numbers. Get some rest tonight, Piper, he said, voice almost cheerful. The round's in the chamber. Midnight drizzle turned the strip mall parking lot into a mirror. Perfect for clandestine meetings. Glenn Avery waited beneath the flickering light of a closed dry cleaner. Collar up, eyes scanning like someone who hadn't slept since his security badge stopped opening doors. I killed my headlights, slid beside him, and cracked the passenger window. 4 days ago, I was balancing 9 decimals, he said without greeting. Now I'm Googling how to negotiate Cobra. He handed over a Cobalt USB stick and 3 folded printouts. I pocketed them before moisture could kiss the plastic. Original Q3 trial balance, I guessed. He nodded. Plus the adjustment request. Read page 2. I unfolded the top sheet. Glow from my dashboard, highlighting every line. It was an email thread from CFO Denise Karloff, time-stamped 1 week before my termination. The subject, Q3 optics, already stank. Her directive was blunt. Pull forward deferred revenue from Phase 4 milestones. Need an 18% bump to the bonus pool. Loop Trent for comps, underneath. Glenn's reply. This violates revenue recognition policy. The next response. Short and lethal. Implement. Executives will assume liability. I inhaled once, slow enough to feel condensation on my ribs. They fired you 3 days ago. 72 hours after I flagged it to compliance, he confirmed. Same restructuring story. They took my laptop, walked me out, and killed my remote access before I hit the elevator. The anger I'd carried all week settled into a colder form. Calcified intent. Did you keep the ledger snapshots? He tapped the USB warming in my pocket. Full drill down, every unearned revenue line they yanked. Hash verified. I nodded once, already mapping how Milo would subpoena server clocks and overlay them with Trent's forged warnings. You understand what sharing this means? Absolutely, he said, which is why I need something from you. He produced his phone, screen lighting his worn face. The latest email was open. Legal watermark across the top. Notice of intended litigation. Misappropriation of proprietary information. Arrived an hour ago, he whispered. They must have tracked the backup I made to my cloud. The letter threatened civil damages and hinted at criminal charges under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, maximum 5 years. The same penalty could apply to anyone who publishes, transmits, or benefits from the material. In other words, me. The drizzle hardened into rain, drumming on the roof. You still want me to use it? If I roll over, they bury the fraud, Glenn said. But if you've got a lawyer who bites, maybe the board caves before anyone files criminal. I don't have kids. You do. If this is too hot, they already threatened to bankrupt me. Jail time's just a higher bid. I passed him a prepaid phone. Milo's encrypted number. He'll shield you under whistleblower status. Maybe line up SEC immunity. Why help? He asked. Because Karloff's bump lines up exactly with my 10% clause. My voice came out colder than the rain. Your data doesn't just expose fraud. It funds my kids' tuition. A half smile tugged at his lips. Then we're aligned. I started the engine. Get somewhere offline, I said. Motel, cash, no Wi-Fi. Milo will reach out in the morning. He nodded, already pulling up his hood. I drove off, windshield wipers slashing the darkness. Back at my apartment, I sealed the USB in an anti-static bag, slid it beside the forged PIPs, and labeled the evidence box Round 2. The rain eased, replaced by the hush before a courtroom gavel. Milo answered on the first ring. I spoke 3 words. "The ledger sings." He paused, then chuckled, the sound of a predator hearing prey trip. "Load it," he said. "Tomorrow we pull the trigger." The line went dead, and my determination clicked from cold to locked. This fight had entered accounting's core, and I now held the detonator. The email Milo blind copied me on looked harmless. 3 sentences. No adjectives. A PDF attachment under 1 megabyte, but it was the equivalent of sliding a live grenade across Nova Dine's mahogany conference table. Subject line, Bladel compensation demand. The body cited Section 12B, gave them 72 hours, and ended with, "Govern yourselves accordingly." Milo sent it at 10:03 in the morning, and for the first 6 hours nothing happened. I refreshed inbox, watched the mail app blink 0, tried to believe silence meant surrender. By late afternoon, optimism curdled. Corporations never bleed quietly. They lawyer up, sharpen claws, and return with counterattacks shaped like subpoenas. The counterattack arrived at 6:21 p.m. Subject screaming in caps. Notice of breach and demand for arbitration. My stomach fell through the chair before I even opened it. Their counsel accused me of unauthorized penetration of protected networks, theft of proprietary data, and interference with business relations. Damages sought, $2 million plus a 5-year industry ban, exile dressed as compliance. I read the paragraph twice, then a third time, hoping repetition might conjure sanity. My pulse hammered. Ears rang, classic fight or flight. Except flight wasn't on the menu. If they proved hacking, my 10% clause died, and Glenn's whistleblower cash turned toxic. Everything I'd rebuilt in hope could collapse overnight. I called Milo. He answered on the first ring, no greeting. "They bit." Traffic hissed behind him. I recited the numbers, the accusations, the ban. He didn't swear, he just said, "Expected. Forward the evidence packet." I sent the attachment, a 20-page PDF of server log screenshots, file transfer charts, a tidy timeline placing me inside Novadine's finance database at 2:53 a.m. the night after my firing. Corporate watermark, digital signatures, official enough to fool an exhausted arbitrator at a glance. 30 minutes later, Milo rang back, laughter curling through the line. "Total bluff," he said. "Screenshots are static images, no metadata, no hashes, no log chain. They didn't even bother faking time zones. A junior paralegal stitched them in Photoshop." Relief should have flooded me. Instead, dread thickened. If their forgery persuaded a judge before we exposed it, I'd still be buried. Milo's tone hardened. "We have 48 hours to file a motion to compel discovery and freeze disciplinary action. After that, arbitration hits, and the board rubber stamps sanctions. They're counting on us missing the window. If we miss it, the clause dies, the payout evaporates, and Novadine rewrites history while my bank account sinks into irreversible red overnight again. 48 hours. I glanced at the kitchen clock, nearly 7. My son was assembling a telescope model in the living room, unaware his mother might soon wear the label corporate thief. The earlier surge of righteous anger drained, leaving glacial fear. I pictured courtroom lights, whispered headlines, job boards silently blacklisting my name for half a decade. But fear is information. I opened a spreadsheet, habitual refuge, and built a timeline backward from the deadline. First, secure sworn affidavits from IT staff Milo had deposed in prior suits. Second, download Novadine's SOC reports to compare timestamp formats. Third, commission a forensic affidavit proving the PDF lacks embedded log data. Each new row snapped panic into tasks. Tasks into resolve. The last row read, simply, sleep 2 hours, tomorrow. I doubted I would, yet scheduling tamed the quake. I emailed Glenn, warning of retaliation, then encrypted twin backups of his ledger across 2 cloud vaults. Evidence redundancy became prayer. As the apartment dimmed, I closed my laptop and listened to unanswered questions thud against the silence. $2 million. 5 years in exile. Stakes printed in black ink, waiting to strangle me. Milo's final words echoed. Clock's running, Piper. I inhaled, slow and deliberate, and whispered back into the dark. Then let's beat the clock. At 1:40 a.m., my phone buzzed so hard it rattled the bedside glass. Sender, Lana Torres, Proton Mail. Subject line, we're running out of time. I thumbed it open, half sure it was another warning. Instead, the body held 1 sentence and 2 attachments. Server logs pulled from night audit. You never came back inside. Attachment 1 was a zipped JSON export of Novodyne's authentication gateway. Attachment 2, a CSV Lana had annotated in red. The last event tied to my employee ID was 8:07 a.m. on termination day, exactly when HR killed my badge. Every failed login afterward belonged to service accounts, none carrying my credentials. My breath left in a rush. But Lana wasn't finished. Her closing line, check subfolder exec private 1, found on Trent's laptop image. I rolled out of bed, powered the computer, and unzipped the second archive. Deep inside a maze of audit files sat a directory tagged to Trent's workstation. Exec private 1 contained 6 Word documents, the very warnings and PIPs Novodyne swore I'd signed. Their creation stamps read 10:14 a.m. and 10:19 a.m. the morning after my firing. Metadata frozen like bugs in amber. One even carried the placeholder title, Insert Performance Fail Here. Terror flipped to vindication in 40 seconds, hands trembling with focus. I zipped everything into an encrypted vault and shot it to Milo. Smoking gun, 2:03 a.m., call when armed. He didn't wait for dawn. At 2:26 a.m., my cell lit again. I've reviewed the logs, he said, voice sharp. They prove Novodyne forged access reports. And that folder, Chef's Kiss, we can chain the docs straight to Trent's machine. That kills their hacking claim? It embalms it, he replied. Paper rustled. I'm drafting a Rule 34 demand for forensic imaging of every executive laptop. They'll scream privilege. The judge will smell blood. I pictured Trent's duffel bag ego collapsing when an examiner mirrored his hard drive. Yesterday's dread became this morning's readiness. What's next? I asked. We go surgical, Milo said. 3:00 p.m. tomorrow, main boardroom. CEO Reynolds. Outside counsel, full board present. We present terms once, with evidence on the big screen. If they balk, we file a whistleblower packet with the SEC at 4:30. My mouth went dry. That's less than 18 hours. Long enough, he answered. Sleep 4, hydrate, arrive sharp. Let them see your eyes. I'll handle the blades. He hung up. I sat in the dark apartment, laptop glow reflecting off the evidence folder on my coffee table. The house was silent, except for my son's breathing down the hall. For the first time since HR's ambush, I dared imagine telling him robotics camp was still on. I emailed Glenn a single line. Logs exonerate me. Brace for subpoena. Then I backed up Lana's files to 2 cold wallets and a cloud node in Iceland. Redundancy had become ritual. Each copy a votive candle against corporate erasure. At 5:10 a.m., sunrise licked the kitchen tiles orange, and with it came an icy calm. I ironed the Navy suit last worn to win the $46 million contract, printed a fresh copy of my employment agreement, and slid both into a leather portfolio. Every movement felt measured. The choreography of a locksmith aligning tumblers. By 7:30 a.m., my son patted in, rubbing sleep from his eyes. I poured cereal, forced a smile, and told him tonight's dinner depended on how brave adults acted today. He saluted with a spoon like it was normal. When the school bus hissed away, I checked my watch. 8:02 a.m. 7 hours until showtime. The apartment, once echoing with despair, now thrummed like a war room. I rehearsed answers, anticipated lies, sharpened questions designed to puncture them. 3:00 p.m. isn't a meeting, it's an autopsy, and Novadine's leadership doesn't know their cadaver has already been tagged. I closed the portfolio, locked the door, and whispered, "See you on the boardroom table, tomorrow, 3:00 sharp." The boardroom looked like a glass aquarium, walls clear, table gleaming. 8 directors lined up pretending not to be nervous. I walked in with Milo at my left and a wheeled case marked Exhibit at my right. Trent Hollinger already sat near the head, yacht tie straight, eyes gleaming with unearned contempt. CEO Robert Reynolds kept a poker face, but the tight jaw muscle betrayed dread. No handshakes. Milo plugged his laptop into the 98-inch monitor and opened Sequence 1. The first slide showed a word properties window. He spoke calmly. "This document is dated September 28th at 10:14 a.m. Ms. Bladel was terminated at 8:02 a.m. the day before. Time would need to run backward." Next slide. The same pane. Creation path. Users, Thallinger Exec, Private Watch 1. A few directors frowned. Trent's smile withered. Slide 3, Glenn Avery's notarized affidavit, detailed the CFO's request to adjust optics and the retaliatory firing. Milo highlighted, "I was escorted out 72 hours after refusing the directive." The audit chair gasped. Slide 4 stacked 2 emails. Top, the CEO congratulating me. Piper's contract win secures Q3 profitability. Bottom, that same CEO. 12 hours later, approving the termination roster. Milo faced the room. Performance problem or cost cutting on the eve of a bonus pool? Silence stretched. Trent tugged his collar. Milo clicked again. Now the monitor displayed Lana's server log. Red circles marking every fake login Novadine pinned on me. The IP addresses traced to an internal maintenance bot. Someone murmured, "Good grief." Milo closed the laptop. "We'll file with the SEC at 4:30. Before that, my client invokes Section 12(b), 10% of net quarterly profit, payable within 3 business days." Reynolds finally spoke. "Mr. Hollinger, did you create those files?" Trent opened his mouth, found nothing, shrugged. "Our HR system auto-generates templates." Milo produced a printout showing Author Thallinger. He laid it on the table like a revolver. The room reacted as though oxygen had been siphoned out. Reynolds turned toward Trent, icy calm fracturing. "You assured me this was handled." Trent tried again. Legal said." "Get out," Reynolds whispered, each word carved from granite. Trent looked for support. None came. He stood, chair scraping the floor, and limped to the door, clutching a suddenly tiny leather folio. The glass closed behind him with a hush louder than a slam. Reynolds inhaled, then addressed the directors. "Meeting adjourned. I need a word with Ms. Blaisdell." Milo's eyebrow rose. The board filed out, some avoiding my eyes, others offering ghostly nods. Counsel gathered papers and followed. In 90 seconds, the aquarium was drained of everyone except Reynolds and me. He didn't sit. Instead, he walked to the far window, skyline blazing behind him. "This can detonate everything," he said without turning. "That's up to Novadine." I answered. He faced me, produced a flat envelope, slid it across the glass. "Full 10%, pre-audit estimate, wire in 48 hours, plus transitional benefits. A second sheet followed. Non-disclosure and non-disparagement agreement. Signature flags, neon yellow. Sign now and it ends. No press, no regulators, no precedent. I flipped the NDA. The figure was exact, 3.7 million. Yet the clock in my head counted ethics, not dollars. Glenn, Lana. The interns destined for the next acts, silenced if I vanished with the cash. Reynolds checked his watch. You have 60 seconds. Walk away wealthy, or walk into a knife fight that could bankrupt everyone involved, including you. My heartbeat drummed, yet my mind felt unnervingly clear. I thought of my son's telescope kit, half assembled on the dining table, waiting for constellations. I thought of Trent's forged signature boxes and Glenn's insomnia. I uncapped the pen Reynolds provided, its barrel stamped with the company logo like a dare. 50 seconds remained, the room echoing with possibility. I placed the company pen on the contract and slid the envelope back across the glass. Reynolds's eyebrow ticked, but I kept my voice level, crisp, as if dictating minutes. Condition 1, I said. Full 10% of Q3 net, pre-audit, no later than 72 hours from countersignature. Electronic transfer, not paper check. He didn't move. The skyline behind him flickered with heat lightning, a backdrop for leverage. Condition 2, I continued. $200,000, payable to Glenn Avery, recorded as a consulting retainer with non-disparagement on your side only. He speaks freely. Reynolds exhaled through his nose. Fog on tempered glass. And 3, I added, tapping the NDA. Lana Torres receives a signed letter of commendation, naming her a critical asset in the $46 million compliance win. No hidden qualifiers, no HR boilerplate, on your personal stationery. 10 seconds stretched into a canyon. I watched his pupils perform math. Cost of litigation, cost of SEC subpoenas, cost of headlines. Finally, he lifted the Mont Blanc, initialed each line, and slid the pages back. Cheaper than having the commission crawl through my books, he muttered. The pen felt lighter in my hand than before. I wrote my name with deliberate strokes, finishing the loop on the final L like a flourish on a checkmate. Milo stepped inside, summoned by no signal except instinct. He scooped the signed pages into a leather folio, flipped them once, and smiled at Reynolds with courtroom politeness. We'll forward wiring instructions in the next hour, he said. Failure to hit the deadline reinstates all pending claims, and a courtesy call to enforcement. Reynolds' jaw flexed. Understood. He left the room without another word, shoes silent on the marble, as if hoping vanishing quickly could erase the last 30 minutes. The glass door sighed shut. Milo turned toward me. You handled him like a pit boss. How'd it feel? Like steering a plane with one engine out, I said. But inside the turbulence had calmed. Every dial sat green. He opened the folio to a page of scribbled bullet points. At the bottom was a single line of text. Already highlighted. Draft SEC tip memo. Send if wire delayed. We won't need a courtroom, he said. One encrypted message to market abuse, and Reynolds will crawl with interest. A laugh escaped me, short and sharp, relief disguised as amusement. Then we give them 72 hours. He nodded. I'll timestamp the demand at 12:01 tonight. Wire must clear by end of business third day. They miss by a minute. We unleash the hounds. We walked down the corridor, past portraits of founders who once believed integrity was a growth metric. Outside, clouds stacked over the Rockies, but the air smelled like metal before rain. Cleansing. In the elevator, Milo thumb-typed the instruction email. Account details. Glenn's retainer. Lana's letter language. I watched numbers tick downward and felt the building shrink to an artifact. Think they'll honor it? I asked. They're terrified, he said. Terror pays invoices on time. Lobby doors opened onto evening humidity. Reporters clustered near the revolving entrance. Alerted by someone's leak, Milo shielded the folio under his jacket, guiding me through a side exit. Neon reflected off puddles. Each reflection felt like a checkpoint we'd cleared. My phone buzzed. Text from Lana. He's gone. Trent's desk cleaned out. Thank you. I typed back a single word. Soon. Another vibration. Glenn. A gif of fireworks. Followed by, did it work? I replied with a photo of Reynolds' signature. No caption needed. We reached Milo's sedan. Before I climbed in, I faced the tower's lit logo, 9 stories up, and let the victory settle, not loud, not giddy, just absolute. Inside the car, Milo set an alarm for 71 hours, 59 minutes. Consider it our courtesy buffer, he said, but I doubt we'll need the full count. I buckled, closed my eyes for the first real blink all week, and listened to the engine start. Control is silent. I realized it doesn't celebrate, it simply redirects gravity. All that remained was to see if money could move faster than fear. The wire will land, or it won't. Either outcome ends the same. Novodyne pays. We'll see. At 9:07 a.m. on the third day, my phone chimed a dull single note, the kind reserved for bank alerts. I was pouring cereal for my son, trying to pretend nerves taste like cinnamon, when the screen lit green. Incoming wire, $3,700,000. I stared long enough for the milk to overflow the bowl before snapping a screenshot. More proof than any courtroom stamp. My son thought I was speechless because he'd spilled, but I pulled him into a hug so tight he laughed and asked if breakfast came with bonus points. It did. Within an hour, I paid the STEM Academy's entire year, scheduled the telescope camp deposit, and ordered the sleek laptop he'd circled in a catalog. The one I'd told him was someday material. Then I opened the debt spreadsheet I'd kept hidden in a folder named Rainy Projects. Red numbers vanished row by row, credit cards from the year Mom got sick, the emergency furnace loan, interest-gouging nonsense that had shadowed every grocery trip. Zeros lined up like clean teeth. The silence afterward felt different, no longer absence of sound, but the presence of space. At 11. A push notification from Bloomberg sliced through the calm. Novodyne CEO Robert Reynolds steps down amid personal reasons. Stock plunges 17%. The chart showed a red waterfall. Investors reacted to a rumor. I recognized the undertow. When leadership exits suddenly, after a closed-door meeting, markets smell smoke before they see flames. I didn't gloat. I simply brewed coffee, the good kind I'd been saving, and watched the candle I lit for Dad's birthday flicker next to the monitor. Satisfaction wore hush-puppy shoes, soft, sturdy, unlikely to slip. Money could buy relief, but quiet vindication had to be earned, installment by installment. In the afternoon, 2 emails arrived within minutes of each other, both from addresses I didn't recognize at first. Subject lines identical. Your story isn't only yours. The first writer, Dina from Logistics, said she'd been demoted after flagging safety over cost. Her retention bonus evaporated days before payroll locked. The second, Max from R&D, told of a phantom PIP that justified axing his stock options. They'd heard whispers about my settlement, only whispers, thanks to the NDA, and wanted to know if I planned to let Novodyne erase the pattern. Reading their messages, I felt the needle on my internal compass twitch. Justice had paid my bills, but maybe it still owed compound interest. As if on cue, my phone buzzed again, this time a reporter from the Financial Ledger, terse and polite. Seeking comment from an informed source regarding executive-level bonus purges, off-record acceptable. She offered encrypted channels, flexible scheduling, absolute anonymity. My NDA forbade direct disclosure. It couldn't ban truth told by others. I stared at the message while the stock ticker crawl on my muted TV showed Novodyne wobbling further. Analysts citing leadership uncertainty. Reynolds' golden parachute was safe. The janitorial crew would clean his office tonight. But the employees who bled weekends? They deserved at least a flare shot into the sky. I typed back. I'll speak background only. Verify through public filings, not me. My finger hovered, then pressed send. Satisfaction doesn't always roar. Sometimes it clicks softly like a lock disengaging. Outside. Thunder rolled, cleansing air before nightfall. Inside. My account balance glowed. Debts erased. Obligations shifted. New storms were coming. But for this hour, quiet felt righteous. I shut down the budgeting spreadsheet that had dictated my life for 8 years and opened a blank document titled Possibilities. Bullet points appeared almost by themselves. Replace the cracked windshield. Take my son to see the Perseid meteor shower in August. Give Glenn and Lana the first round of funding for whatever fresh start they wanted. None of it was lavish. It was simply uninhibited. Money, it turned out, was never the dream. Breathing without a weight vest was. For the first time in decades. The horizon looked fully uncluttered. Balcony doors slid open to an August dusk, painted sherbet orange, and I carried a chilled flute of champagne to the rail. The new apartment sat 27 floors above the river, high enough that traffic sounded like distant surf, low enough that I could still smell food carts setting up for the night market. I raised the glass, let one slow bubble sting my nose, and felt the first weightless breath I'd taken since HR said the word restructuring. The phone in my pocket trilled. My son's face filled the screen, cheeks flushed, holding a robotics progress sheet like a trophy. 98 out of 100. Mom, the gear ratio trick you taught me worked. I pretended to be shocked. He pretended not to love the praise. Behind him, his dorm bulletin board glowed with ticket stubs and circuitry sketches, a life financed by 10 tiny words hidden on page 6 of a contract. I clinked the camera lens with my flute. Remember this, buddy. Always read the fine print in any contract. He laughed, rolling his eyes the way teenagers do when parents slip life lessons between congratulations. Then he asked if the new telescope had shipped. I said yes. Overnight delivery. No more cardboard lenses guessing at Saturn's rings. We signed off with a promise to live stream the first observation. I leaned on the rail, city lights flickering alive like constellations closer than the real ones. The champagne tasted less like victory and more like equilibrium. Cold, balanced, earned. Every debt dissolved. Every what-if hushed. I could hear my own pulse without also hearing a ticking clock. That quiet gave space for one final task. I opened my laptop, routed through a VPN, and loaded Glassdoor. Under a fresh alias, I wrote a review as calm as this breeze. If you join, document everything. Bonuses move faster than ethics. And restructuring means cutting loyalty to feed optics. No anger, just truth wrapped in a precautionary tale. I hit post and closed the lid. Within 48 hours, the entry rocketed to the site's front page. By day 7, it had been shared 500,000 times across LinkedIn, Reddit, and niche HR forums. Former Novodyne employees stitched their own receipts below mine. Screenshots, payroll anomalies, severance riddles. A swarm of recruiters began messaging me about speaking panels on corporate accountability. Irony tasted sweeter than the champagne. But that was background noise tonight. I watched a barge slide beneath the bridge, its running lights reflecting emerald on the water, and thought how fire looks tame from far enough away. Novodyne's stock still drifted south. Reynolds' severance package was public record. But so was the 5-year officer ban the SEC now mulled. Consequences, like sunsets, could be slow and spectacular, Earlier today, Glenn texted a photo of his cafe's grand opening banner. He named a latte after the spreadsheet that started all this. Lana, now head of compliance at a rival firm, promised to hire interns based on curiosity, not silence. Their updates felt like interest paid on the settlement, small dividends of courage echoing beyond my balcony in every quarterly report they file. I drained the last sip, feeling neither rush nor regret, just an even tide of satisfaction. Whatever came next, consulting offers, lawsuits, maybe a book, would arrive on a calendar I now controlled. The world was suddenly wide again. If you followed this journey through every cliffhanger and calculus, you know the moral isn't revenge, it's leverage through knowledge. So let's widen the circle. Drop a comment below about the finest print clause you've ever uncovered. Share this story with someone stuck under a glass ceiling, and hit subscribe so you won't miss the next true life takeover. Algorithms may be fickle, but collective wisdom compounds faster than corporate greed. As for me, the night is young, the skyline is honest, and tomorrow's sunrise already owes me nothing. Some exits deserve fireworks, and mine was financial fireworks,